Today on Unsolved Fantasy Mysteries, we head to Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, for a meeting between old gods and new, Mr. Wednesday and the Forgettable God. And we ask the question, who is the Forgettable God of Neil Gaiman's American Gods? Find out today on Unsolved Fantasy Mysteries. We continue our exploration as to who is the Forgettable God of Neil Gaiman's American Gods, and we begin with the Hindu deity Buddha. Now you might be thinking, Buddha, isn't that the leader of the Buddhist tradition? And that is true, that there was an individual named Siddhartha Gautama who was the Buddha of Buddhism, but there is also a Buddha of Hinduism. He is the son of a moon god named Soma and a sun god named Brihaspati. In Vedic astrology, Buddha is one of the 9 planets, and he is the planet Mercury. Now, if you've heard of the god Mercury before, it's possible that you've heard of him in the context of the Roman religion. And these two gods do share some things in common in that they are connected to money and financials, and they are connected to wisdom, meaning that they are connected to wealth and the mind. It is said that he grants wealth to those that he governs. He governs commerce, tangible and intangible. He grants wealth to his devotees. He removes obstacles in the ways of their success. Now, if we're thinking about what kind of deity might be located in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is seeming to be a pretty good candidate so far, is it not? Now, as the god of knowledge, it is both his ability to grant wisdom and erase wisdom. As the greatest among the wise, he has the ability to give thoughts to people as well as take thoughts away from people. And if you're starting to make the connections here, it's because our forgettable god in American Gods has a conversation with Mr. Wednesday, and Shadow, our protagonist, can't remember him afterwards. So it's possible that our version of Buddha in this story, aka Mercury, is taking away those memories from Shadow himself. According to the descriptor of the Forgotten God in American Gods, he had dark hair, dark eyes, and wore a charcoal suit. He was a well-manicured man, as one might say. Buddha was said to have dark hair, dark eyes, and was among the best looking of all the Vedic gods. Now here is where we're going to get extra analytical. And for that, I require my spectacles. The element mercury is also known as quicksilver. It is the only metal that is liquid at room temperature. It is notoriously difficult to contain, and it is extremely quick to evaporate. The phrase, like trying to hold mercury, is a common euphemism for things that are either easily forgotten or difficult to contain. Forgettable God's home is Las Vegas, Nevada, which Gaiman goes out of his way to describe as a place where money evaporates or just melts away, just like knowledge of the Forgettable God. If Mercury is both the incarnation of money and knowledge, and Mercury is also impossible to retain or contain, you then get knowledge and wealth that is impossible to contain or retain, aka the Forgettable God. Let us dive into some further details. We referenced our charcoal suit, which Neil Gaiman mentions in our story. The only thing that can contain or absorb mercury is charcoal, which is utilized in containers designed to control mercury spills. According to my notes, Wednesday orders the Forgotten God a Lafroig and water while they are at the bar. This is a single malt Scotch whiskey famous for its peaty aroma, the result of a distilling process that involves peat from the local peat bogs used to dry the malt. Mercury is a natural byproduct of peat. Now, I mentioned in passing that Soma was the father of Buddha, and in our encounter between Wednesday and the Forgettable God only agrees when he is offered Soma, which Wednesday then tells Shadow later on is like bottled prayers. But we're referencing Soma, so it therefore seems plausible that there is a connection between these two deities, aka the son of Soma, which is Buddha, whose name is also Mercury. Now let's get into a few more interesting facts, and for that I refer back to my notes. In further consideration, I think that the Forgettable God is supposed to be an embodied combination of all the different Mercuries. This includes the planet Mercury, the element Mercury. It is our Roman Mercury and our Hindi Mercury, aka Buddha. The Hindi word for Wednesday is also a derivative of the word Buddha. So as Hindi is our connection to Hinduism in a lot of ways, shapes, or forms, we see that it is possible that we have this even deeper connection in the story, because as our main characters are Shadow and Wednesday, we are then once again connecting these characters to each other. It's also important to note some of the subtle context that Neil layers into our story, which is that while our forgettable God is in a charcoal suit, Wednesday is in a light gray suit. And there is a song that's playing at the bar while this encounter is happening. And the song is Why Can't He Be You? Let's talk about Wednesdays now and how they fit in the greater context of who our forgettable God could be and why. The only Mercury that isn't considered in terms of our forgettable gods is Wednesday. Now, if you've read the book, and even if you haven't, it's very early that we realize that Wednesday is Odin, and that's because the name Woden is what gave the name Wednesday to the English language and our calendar. So Shadow meets him on a Wednesday. He says to go by Wednesday, but in reality, it's Odin. Now, in our version, this Mr. Wednesday, he is separate from this other Mercury. However, like all the other Mercuries, he is a dispenser and dissolver of knowledge, Mr. Wednesday. He is a withholder of knowledge. He is a wisdom-based god. Odin sacrificed himself so he could be a god of wisdom. He also sacrificed his eyes so that he could see everything. These are characteristics of Odin, and they are also characteristics of other Wednesdays, aka other Mercuries. Let's refer back to the notes here. Wednesday Odin is the only Mercury who isn't a god of commerce, which I think is the reason why he is separate from the other Mercury. He is, however, like all the other Mercuries, a dispenser and dissolver of knowledge. And by the end of the book, you realize that Wednesday is just hidden and invisible as the forgotten god, both metaphorically because his true motives are hidden and he's constantly conning people by hiding his true identity under a facade, and physically because at the end, he's just a disembodied voice. Now, we've talked about Soma, and we're going to talk about Soma once more. One of the dead giveaways that our forgettable god is Mercury is this conversation about Soma, and that is because Buddha, aka Mercury, was the son of Soma. Now, Neil Gaiman describes the interaction between the god and Wednesday at the bar scene. He writes them as warped mirror images of each other. Wednesday is the man in the light gray suit, and Mercury is the man in the charcoal gray dark suit. Wednesday drinks Jack Daniels, a Tennessee straight whiskey legally defined as bourbon, which is disputed by distillers as being its own thing, and Mercury drinks a Scotch whiskey. And of course, there is the song playing, which is Why Can't He Be You? I don't know if the lyrics themselves are relevant, but the song title I think is. I think it is a direct reference to the fact that Wednesday is Mercury, but he also isn't Mercury at the same time, because Neil Gaiman is a brilliant and trickstery writer. Now, there are a couple last important bits that we must note in our discussion as to who this deity is. Because the planet Mercury is practically impossible to the human eye, the Egyptian name for Mercury is SBG, which is unknown. The conception of Buddha caused a war of the gods, according to Hindu mythology, and the war between gods is the premise of American Gods. Buddha has a consort named Ila, and she is a lunar goddess. Now, Shadow is Shadow Moon, and his wife is Laura Moon. We know that Shadow doesn't know who his father is. We can therefore come to the idea that Shadow took his mother's last name, and he himself is a moon, which Shadow is the son of Wednesday, which is interesting, and that is very similar to what we are seeing here. And we see that Shadow would have had his mother's last name, making his mother a moon. His mother is described as being dark-haired and dark-eyed, which roughly indicates that his mother looked ethnically like the forgotten god. They are all connected in this greater story, and it leads one to question, is Mercury in fact the forgotten god? You tell me. If you like videos like this and you want to see more of these in the future, let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what unsolved fantasy mystery you would like to see next. If you're new here, this isn't what I do all the time, but it's a fun way to do it. I'm gonna say it at the end of the video, but hi friends, welcome to Fantasy Awash. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. Leave me a comment down below, and as always, I'll see you next time. Bye.